wrapped up in the things you are here to fulfill. Whatever you choose for a career path, remember the struggles along the way are only meant to shape you for your purpose.
Welcome to In Bloom. I am your host, Michaela Richmond, and this is a Pro Humanity podcast.
All right. Well, on today's podcast, I have Tim Chermak. I am so excited. Actually, the first time I ever heard Tim was on the Self-Directed podcast with Mitchell, and that became my favorite episode very quickly. So I'm so glad to have you on.
Well, we have high expectations, I guess.
I mean, okay, well, here's the thing. So you know a lot. And whenever I was listening to that podcast, I was taking notes vigorously because it was so good. Can you give a little bit of a background on how you got your start, what you do now, just like who are you?
Yeah, the TLDR of my career life story is that I went to college, dropped out my senior year. I had bounced around, amongst various colleges and even like an online school, ended up dropping out in what would have been like the equivalent of my senior year. I was majoring in economics finance, and I thought, like, I'm going to go be an investment banker because I just had Googled, who makes the most money out of college in their first year. And it was like investment bankers average a salary of $100,000, if they have a undergrad degree. So I was like, cool, problem solved. I'll do that. And that was about the extent of thought I put into what I was going to spend the next like 60 years of my life doing. Was I just, Googled who makes the most money. It took me to my senior year to realize, like, oh my God, I do not want to do this as a career. So I dropped out and just decided to launch my own marketing company because I did some soul searching. I realized what I actually enjoy is teaching and persuading people. And marketing is basically teaching people with an incentive to get them to buy, what you want them to buy, right? It really is education and teaching. And so it's actually why a lot of the most famous marketers across history came from preachers' families. Like their fathers were often preachers, or they were a pastor preacher, and they like kind of evolved their career into marketing. Because I think there's this core, I don't know if it's a gene that some people have, where they just enjoy teaching and persuasion. And so apparently that's me. And I went into marketing because I honestly just felt like I enjoyed it. So when I say I went into marketing or I started a marketing business, what I mean is I just went door to door in my small hometown in the Midwest in like central Minnesota. And I just went door to door to local small businesses saying, hey, would you like to hire me for marketing? And keep in mind, I'm like, 21 years old at the time. So I have absolutely zero credibility, zero track record, no portfolio of successful clients or anything like that. And I would type up a quick report for each of these businesses of here's some marketing ideas that I think you could implement, and this is back, in 2011, 2012, 2013. And so this is even before Facebook ads are a thing. Like Google pay-per-click is still in its like ascendancy. YouTube ads didn't exist. Like most of the modern ad channels we think of now as being pretty commonplace, like obviously Snapchat, TikTok, like none of that existed back then. So a lot of my ideas were more just marketing strategy that didn't even require paid online ads, because again, these media channels didn't even exist. So I would send them, a quick report, and they'd give me a meeting and talk about it. I think the first 10 people for sure that I met with just said, no, we're not going to hire you, And in hindsight, totally makes sense. I was young, had no experience. Like I would not hire someone who walked in with that pitch if they were, like barely, of legal drinking age to have a beer, right? I'm not going to let them like influence the strategic marketing decision of my business, right? Eventually I got someone to say yes. It was a realtor, and I helped her massively grow her business. I mean, I added like several $100,000 essentially to her annual income. So, I mean, like changed her life. That wouldn't be an inaccurate thing to say in this situation. And just from kind of dumb luck, I realized like, oh, well, I built this kind of realtor marketing program, I guess, where I helped her generate buyer leads, seller leads. I helped her brand herself and stay top of mind with her sphere of influence to help her get more referrals, all the things that a successful local real estate agent needs to do to make a ton of money. I devised this marketing system for her. And I didn't know anything about real estate at the time. I had never been licensed as a realtor. No one in my family had ever been licensed as a realtor. I just honestly went on Google and did as much research as I could about like what do realtors typically do for marketing, you know, and I realized like, oh, the bar is really, really low. Like what they're doing is just like dumb. Even me at age 20, 21, like I knew that like, okay, what agents are doing is just it's dumb. Like it's not getting an ROI. They're just doing it because that's the way it's always been done. And so I helped this realtor grow her business a ton. And I kind of realized after all this that I could replicate the same marketing system for other agents across the country. And as long as I just stuck with a policy of I will only work with one realtor per market, I could basically copy and paste that system, I guess. So, like I didn't have to write a new marketing plan and reinvent the wheel for every single client, which is what most marketing agencies have to do. Is they have to do a bunch of research and run tests, and they have to learn every industry from scratch whenever they pick up a new client. But I had already built a realtor marketing system, so I could essentially just launch the same ad campaigns and the same strategy for all these clients across the country, as long as I only worked with one realtor per city, right? So I wasn't like helping someone's competition and had a conflict of interest. So if you know, fast forward almost 10 years later now, I mean, we have 180 agents work with across the country. We have a team of over like 20 people on the platform team. Our business is called platform marketing, and things are really good. So there wasn't any master plan. I never once sat down and even wrote like a 5-page business plan or anything like that. It was all just
Mm-hmm.
you you see an opportunity and you optimize it, you work hard, and then often that creates another opportunity and you chase that, and things kind of snowball from there.
No, that's awesome. Um, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel with every single different person that you help because of the fact that you're doing real estate. Does that also mean that you don't have to hire as many people?
Yeah, it probably does. Like technically we could probably get by with like 50% fewer employees because the actual launching of the ads themselves doesn't take that much time. um you know, like when we already know what ad is going to work for a realtor, like we know what ad will help them get listings, or what ad will help them maybe get more buyer leads, whatever. The actual launching of a digital ad campaign and setting up the retargeting pixels and tracking and the follow-up campaigns and all that, like that's not rocket science. Like once you know how to use those interfaces, like you can train someone pretty easily to do that. But we still, I mean, have a payroll that's like well over $100,000 a month because I invest in account managers where I want every client that works with us to have a person they talk with regularly who's kind of like their strategist. It's almost like their personal marketing strategist where yes, we already know a bunch of ads are going to work, but they have a person they talk to every week. So all of our clients call us every week and we have a one-on-one phone call with them every week. Again, that's not like a Zoom call. It's not a group webinar where there's 50 people on there or something. It's a one-on-one phone call. So that requires us hiring a lot more people. If usually each account manager works with about 20 people. So every 20 clients we have, we need to hire a new account manager. And these aren't like $15 an hour entry level positions where it's like a call center, right? Like these are skilled professional people that most of the account managers at platform are going to make with benefits and everything somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 a year, you know, and we're paying for their health insurance. We do like 40 days of PTO a year. So it's like a great job, and we're attracting really talented people to fill those account manager positions because if a realtor hires us and they're paying us a premium, like we're not a cheap marketing company to work with because we know that our program works, right? We know it delivers results, so I'm not going to give it away, you know, for free. Like it's a premium to work with us. We're one of the more expensive companies uh, in the industry. And so if a realtor hires us, let's say, and they're already making, like they're already successful and they're already making like $200,000 a year, but their goal is to get to $400,000 a year, right? If you're the type of person who's already making 200K a year and you hire like a premium marketing company like platform, it'd be kind of a downer and a misalignment of your expectations if you're like, hey, cool, now the person you get to work with is like this glorified $12 an hour call center employee. It's like, well, you were expecting a marketing professional, and if what you got was like a call center employee who's just reading scripts off of a, you know, call sheet, like that's kind of a bummer, right? You were thinking this was going to be more of a professional, strategic type relationship. So because of that, we hire people that I know are really smart people, and even if they don't have a marketing background, we can train them on the marketing specifics, but they have to be a really, really smart person so that we can put them in that role and they'll thrive and they'll be able to have discussions and like high level business conversations with someone who might already be making like $250,000 a year, right? And they'll be able to be put into that conversation and into those like marketing strategy discussions and actually add value, where the person who is already making, let's say, 250K a year, like, I mean, they're in like the American top 1% already, right? Like they're already crushing their business. They're a successful realtor, that they still feel like they're getting value added in these discussions we have with them, on top of all the ads that we're doing, and we're editing their videos and obviously all the marketing deliverables. So other companies don't do that. And so other companies, you might just sign up and get a website. You sign up and you get access to their CRM, whatever. But we actually build relationships with our clients, and we're brainstorming new ideas constantly. And it's super cliche, like super cheesy to say this, but they view us as like a partner, not just like, oh, this is my Facebook ads company or this is my website company. Like they honestly view us as like a strategic business partner, where they'll even call us and ask us advice about things that aren't even related to their ads, just like general high level business advice, like who should I hire next, or what should my next move be, or I'm thinking about expanding into this other market, or I'm thinking about adding this service or hiring this person. Like we'll advise them on things like that. So it's almost like a business consulting firm that also will do your marketing for realtors. And so because of that, we have to hire really great people. So if we got rid of all of that, like I could probably cut our expenses by 80%, but I don't think we would have as successful of a company if we didn't have like this, A plus team that we have. So
Yeah,
have you read the book or heard of the book 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel?
I have.
So one concept he talks about in the book, and I'm not, it's been a couple years since I've read it, so I'm not sure I'm getting the wording exactly right, but the general idea is that the software of the future that's going to be really, really successful isn't going to be just straight up software companies where it's like, hey, this great new app does everything for you. The most valuable companies of the future are going to be the ones that combine software with really smart humans who apply the software into like specific use cases. And so it's essentially the combination of human talent, human intelligence with software that streamlines uh, things. And those will be the most valuable companies that have a really good moat around their castle. Because if you just have a really good app or software, right, like you could be overtaken by someone who builds just slightly better software that does more or less the same
Hmm.
thing. But if you're combining that, institutional wisdom that only humans can bring to the table with some software, like that's a pretty proven long-term recipe, and that's what we've been able to do at platform. So
No, that makes a lot of sense. I was reading something yesterday and it was talking about how I think it's I think it was Salesforce, how Salesforce opened up their platform to other developers, and the fact that they did that means that they don't have to continuously compete. So it's just like leveraging the talent and the wisdom of other people as well. And that's really cool.
yeah, you're basically building a talent ecosystem that has you as the common denominator. Yep.
I like how that was said. Okay, so you built this business. I want to touch on kind of like the beginnings, the door to door. Like, why did you do that? What instigated that in your mind as like this is the way to go? And were you nervous? Like, how did you get to that place?
Yeah, I mean, I was very nervous. I think anyone going into like in-person pitches or sales, if they say they're not nervous, they're probably either lying or they're stupid because they should be nervous. But yeah, I mean, I was like 20, 21 years old, something like that. Um, and I was confident in my ideas. So like I knew that if someone will just give me a chance, I know that these ideas will work. And to this day, I've gone back and looked at some of those like Word docs I typed up way back when, and I'm like, oh wow, like I was actually far smarter back then than in hindsight I probably give myself credit for. Like it's not that the reason I'm doing well now and I'm financially successful and we have this thriving business or whatever, it's not that every year I got a little bit smarter and then finally I became smart enough to be financially successful. Like I was really smart at marketing back then too. I just hadn't yet been given the opportunity to
Mhm.
actually implement my ideas, right?
So
So even
how did you get there? Like how did you become smart at marketing?
I just honestly went on Amazon and I bought any book I could find on marketing. I read a bunch of like Dan Kennedy books. I went to Barnes and Noble and bought, all the Seth Godin books on marketing. My dad, when I was like, a newborn, had gone to our local bank back in Minnesota in my hometown, and he had started like a savings account for me that was supposed to be for, I think, college or something, and he put like $1,000 in it or something, and apparently he like forgot about it. Like he just completely forgot about it. And so all these years later, when I turned like 18 and I went to, the bank, and I was like depositing some check for that, someone had written me. It was probably for mowing lawns when I was like 18. And they're like, "Oh, Mr. Chermak, which checking account would you like to put this into?" And I was like, "What?" Because they had never asked me that before. And like, "Well, you have multiple accounts here." I was like, "Oh, I don't think so. I think I only have the one." And they're like, "Oh, no, but it's, it's this number, or it's this checking account ending in this number, or this other one ending in this number." And I'm like, "Oh, I've never heard of that other one. What is that? How much is in it?" And I can't remember if it was like $3,000 or $5,000, but it was something like that, like $3,000 to $5,000. And I got home and I realized what had happened was, my parents told me, like, "Oh yeah, apparently we started that savings account for you, when you were born, and we forgot about it. And just the interest over the years has grown it to being, it's now a couple $1,000s or whatever." And at that time, keep in mind, or actually, I wouldn't have been 18. I must have been 20 or 21, because at that time I had already basically made the decision I was going to drop out of college. And so I realized there's all this money that's been, at least in theory, allocated for my college education by my parents. And so I just asked them, like, "Hey, can I just use this to like buy books online that interest me? Like, I'm not going to go buy DVDs or, stuff that people were ordering at the time." Because keep in mind, this is like 10 years ago. But if I see a book I want from Amazon on whatever topic, whether it's economics, business, marketing, advertising, copywriting, whatever, like, can I just use that to, buy those books? And my parents, to their credit, were like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds like a great idea. Like, just buy whatever books you want." And they trusted me that I wasn't going to blow it on random stuff on Amazon, that I was actually buying books. And so I've ended up building this massive library actually over the years, and having that kind of like fund to get going. It just got me in the habit of, if I see a book on a topic that I'm interested in, I will buy that book. I won't even think about it. Like, I mean, to this day, I probably spend $100 to $200 a week buying books every week.
Damn.
Um, because it's like, if there's something I'm interested in, I'll buy it. And even if I don't have time to read it that week, I'll still buy it, because now I know in the future, if I have some time to read a book and I'm still interested in that particular topic, I already have it in my library. So
Yep.
I actually have a condo I bought basically as a library office where I live here in Florida. It's about half a mile away from my actual house. And that's where I walk and work every day. And I basically transform the living room into a giant like library, like floor to ceiling, lined with books. And it's, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 books by now, something like that. So when you walk into this condo, it's basically just it's a giant library. And so I read way more than people probably who even have graduate degrees or, post grad type of degrees. And that has given me a foundation of marketing knowledge, I guess, of what ads work and how to write a headline, and just the theory that goes into all that. And so at that young of an age, I guess I just needed someone to give me the chance to actually start practicing and applying some of these ideas, because you can have all the theory in the world, obviously, but until you get out into the real world and you can start writing ads, see what works, experience failure a couple times, and then look at a failed ad and then be able to be honest with yourself and be like, "Okay, in hindsight, this ad didn't work. Why didn't it work?" Right? And if you do that enough, eventually your hit rate of writing ads and ad campaigns that are going to work becomes a lot higher. So I just learned to love reading at a young age, and I will totally give my parents credit for, that couple $1,000 gift I had, that I could start buying books. But I mean, really,
Mhm.
anyone can go to Amazon and buy used books for like $5 a piece, right? So it's not that you have to start off with 1,000 or $2,000. I should also give myself credit that, like, I was the type of person where when I saw that money, I didn't go ask my parents, "Hey, can I just take this out?" Like I was like, hey, I want to buy books doing this. And most
Mm-hmm.
kids my age, let's be honest, like most 20, 21-year-olds are not buying books. I mean, so my library has everything from like textbooks on church history to economics to, early American history, finance, obviously marketing, sales. I mean, all that, anything I was interested in. If I had, like recently I've been reading about just DeFi and blockchain and Bitcoin and the future of crypto and what that all might mean for, the economy and collateralization and NFTs. And like, it's my rule where if something looks even remotely interesting, I buy the book. Maybe it's a history book that has absolutely nothing to do with anything, but I'm interested in learning about that. So I'll still read, biographies of Andrew Carnegie or Cornelius Vanderbilt or Rockefeller. It's like, well, I'm not planning on launching an oil company or a steel company or a shipping company anytime soon, but learning about, successful business people in the past is just inherently interesting to me. And so if I'm ever, again, even sort of interested in something, the rule is I will buy a book on it or several books on it, and I'll keep, learning and reading about that. And so that's a huge life advantage that I think transfers into anything that you might go into. Like, even if you look at something that's like the opposite in every way of like creative advertising, marketing, whatever, think of something like engineering, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very mathematical, driven. There's obviously still tons of creativity that goes into being a great engineer, but it's very much you have to learn the basics and go through a process and get, licensed from an accredited university to have an engineering degree and all that. But I would hire 100 times out of 100 if I owned like, an architectural firm or an engineering firm. I would want to hire someone who has an engineering degree so they legally could be a, licensed engineer. But I also know that, let's say that they've read hundreds of books on engineering above and beyond the
Mm-hmm.
required textbooks they had for class, because they're just passionate about learning different approaches to engineering and the history of it and different philosophies of, style and, staying on top of trends in engineering, again, versus someone who just, well, I went to school, got my degree, and I didn't do any learning on top of just what was required for my classes. Like,
Yeah.
the first type of person is gonna succeed in their career. You just apply that to whatever your career is in, and you will be successful.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think the thing that was great for me to realize was the fact that in school, in literally any course, whatever, you can't encapsulate a full subject. Like you can't. You pick and choose what's relevant to you. A teacher is going to pick and choose what they like, what is in line with what they understand. But if you're going to search for the truth, if you're going to try and understand things actually and fully, um, it's more than just understanding and knowing, because it's just like you read and you're like, okay, that sounds correct, regurgitate, and that's it. Rather than whenever you have a ton of books, like I absolutely love the fact that you have that library. Whenever you have a ton of books, you see all of these different perspectives, and then you can question yourself and you can say, okay, how does this line up with another topic that I've learned? And I think that's amazing. Love the library thing.
Yeah, I was pretty stoked that this last year I was able to hire a woodworker who makes like cabinets and like custom
Ah,
design all the
that's
bookshelves.
awesome.
Yeah, it's like floor to ceiling, both walls of this room that you walk into. And then the other wall on the other end of it is just like floor to ceiling glass window that overlooks like a golf course here. So like I walk into my office every day and that's where I work, is this like giant library surrounded by books. And it sounds cheesy, but it does put me in a more creative, contemplative mood when you're surrounded by, books. And
Hmm.
so I've always wanted that, and I was able to do that this last year. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, if I could narrow it down to one thing, because I've had people ask me this question in various ways over the years, like, how did you become successful or whatever at a young age? Especially without college, because everyone knows I dropped out of college. Like, people who get to know me, I love talking about that. It's that I learned to love reading. It really is that simple. Like, it is
Yeah.
that simple. If you learn to enjoy reading, even fiction too, because there's some great fiction books out there that obviously you're still learning lessons and things like that. It's just a huge skill set. Like, a lot of people, the last book they'll ever read is in high school or college, and then they just don't read after that.
Do you have a system for getting through a lot of books? Do you read for pleasure? Do you read the full book? Do you, take segments and read for what you need? How do you go about it?
I this is maybe like a weakness that I need to work on, but I am a finisher, like a book finisher. So like it really pains me. Like a book has to be really, really bad for me not to finish it. Because it just annoys me if I have a book that I look at on my bookshelf and I know that I didn't actually finish that book. It feels like I'm cheating somehow by putting that book on my bookshelf. Because part of having a library is like, oh, it's all these books that I've read. So it gives me a sense of accomplishment anytime I walk in there that these are all proof of like things I've learned, right? So I I would almost rather throw a book away if I think it's that bad that it's not worth finishing. I'll just throw it in the garbage rather than like read a chapter and realize I don't like it and then put it on my bookshelf. So I usually finish books that I read for better or worse, but I only read a book if I'm interested in that topic at that time. And then usually I don't know, I probably read for I don't even know if I read every day anymore, but I'll go through stretches where on a weekend I might read for 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday or something like that. And so it's like every week, if you average it out, I'm probably reading at least an hour a day, but it comes in bunches. And anytime I'm on a plane, for example, I read. Like I never use my laptop on a plane. Like I think people who pay for Wi-Fi on planes and they're using their computer are just like uncivilized brutes because it's like, dude, it's the only 3 hours of your week you're probably going to spend not connected to the internet. So what a great opportunity to read, right? Like there's lots of, I mean, anytime I'm driving somewhere where I'm in the back seat and someone's driving me somewhere, whether it's on a road trip or something like that, I'll bring a book and I'll read. If I go to the beach, I was actually just on vacation this last week at a resort in Florida, and I just read all day. Like I'll go to the beach and I'll tan or whatever, and I'll be laying out there, but like I'm not just sitting there not doing anything. I'm reading. So just looking for opportunities in everyday life to read versus like only reading for when you're in bed for half an hour, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's probably something like that. I'm guessing most weeks it's like 5 to 10 hours I spend reading, but the most important thing is that I will only read something if I'm interested in it. So like it happens all the time that I go to Barnes and Noble and I might buy 4 or 5 books because I walk around the history section or the social science section or the business section or the economic section, and I'm just like, if this book looks interesting, I'll
Mm-hmm.
buy it. But when I get home, I won't read a book, or if I'm traveling somewhere and I'm grabbing the books I want to read on that flight, if I'm flying somewhere, I will make sure I'm only reading books about a topic that's really interesting to me at that specific time.
No, I like that. I do that too.
Yeah, if you're reading about something kind of like just for fun or just in case, you're not really going to pay that close of attention.
Exactly.
But like, just here's a really granular example. Like if I know that our company is about to, I don't know, hire a key person and in like an upper level management type of role, then I'll probably be reading a book about hiring people or management. Um, if I go on a plane flight that week, because like that's the topic that's top of my mind, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot easier to focus on a book like that if it's immediately relevant to what I'm going to be doing
Mm-hmm.
in the um in the near future. So or like I remember a couple years ago we were about to go on kind of like a hiring spree and hiring multiple people, and we were making some major investments in our company to help us grow. And so I was actually really enjoying reading Titan, which is a big biography of John Rockefeller, because obviously he's like the definition of building a scalable business that grows really big. And so we're not an oil or a processing or a refining company, but reading about someone who is scaling their business and every year it's scaled puts you in the mental mindset of how you can apply that, to your business. So while we were in that kind of season of our business, that season of life, I read that book and it was really interesting because I could apply it immediately to what we were going through. So yeah, like read books,
Mm-hmm.
topics that you're interested in right now.
No, I like that. That's practical. Okay, so let's get back to how you ended up actually succeeding in building this company. Like, so you did the door to door, kind of nerve wracking, but you believed in your ability to do well. Um, and then you helped this realtor, and I believe that's whenever it skyrocketed for you.
Yeah, so I mean, I had worked with some small businesses before the realtor, so it wasn't like the realtor was my very first ever opportunity to work with any business. I had worked with a CrossFit gym and a staffing service, a natural health and wellness store, um, I'm forgetting a couple. I worked actually on a campaign of a guy who ran for US Congress, and I helped with some of his social media marketing. Yeah, there were I'm forgetting a few here. There were a couple other businesses that I kind of did freelance marketing work for, but the realtor was the first one where I think the economics of the business model aligned with the type of marketing I was doing. Where let's say that you work with a coffee shop, right? And let's say that you're a young whippersnapper marketing consultant like I was 10 years ago, and you're really ambitious and you want to get clients, you want to build this successful marketing firm or whatever. And you might do really good marketing for a local coffee shop. But if it's a coffee shop, think about what the economics of that business are. Like they're selling $5 cups of coffee that, you know, maybe the cost of the cup of coffee is $1, but then you have the overhead that gets factored into everything, like all the wages they have to pay, obviously the lease or the mortgage payment they're making on the building, land they're in, taxes, utilities, all that. So it's like you have to sell a shit ton of cups of coffee at $5 a piece, to actually make any money at a coffee shop, because like even though the gross margin looks high, like, oh yeah, well, a cup of coffee is $5 and it only costs you $1, there's $4 left over. It's like, well, that is not true, right? When you're factoring in taxes, overhead, payroll, all that. So you could do the most creative marketing campaigns in the world for a locally owned coffee shop, but like they'll probably never be able to pay you $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month or whatever it would require to be worth your time to work with them on an ongoing basis, right? Because like they're just not making enough money in their business to justify paying for like professional marketing help, right? And that's the same with many businesses, like a local restaurant, for example. They don't make that much money. Like most restaurants make 10% net or less, so they might do $1 million a year of, gross revenue in some local restaurant, and they're making probably between 50 and $100,000 in net profit on that, which isn't a lot of money to take that much risk to run a restaurant to only make, let's say, $80,000 or $100,000 a year. Like they're risking a lot of money to make that. So if I even came along and said, hey, I will be your, ongoing kind of marketing consultant on retainer, and let's say every month my fee is $1,500 and I'll contribute new marketing ideas and help you write some of your ads and you pay me $1,500 a month. It's like, well, if they were only making $80,000 a year of net profit, my fee is like 25% of their entire net profit for the entire year. Like, it's not really worth it to them. Like, even if I help them grow their sales or grow their profitability by, let's say, 25%,
Mm-hmm.
they're still only adding 20, 25 grand to their net profit, which coincidentally is like my entire fee. So like almost like a best case scenario, it's only paid for itself. They're only breaking even on their investment with me. So unless you have some super creative business model that I'm not aware of, like if you're good at marketing, you have to work for organizations or for business models where you can help them make way more money than they're paying you. A lot of businesses are such small margins, or they're dealing with such small numbers, even if the margin is technically high, they're dealing with such small local numbers that they'll just never be able to afford to hire a marketer. So, my 21-year-old self wasn't really thinking in these terms. And I was just like, I need any client I can get who will pay me money just so I can start building a track record and a portfolio. But it was the realtor that was the first business that came along where the economics of being a real estate agent made sense to invest in like professional marketing, because realtors typically make 2 to 3% on their commissions. And so let's say she helps someone sell a $400,000 house. Well, at 3%, like she's making $12,000 in commission on selling that one house. So if I could basically devise a marketing system that allowed her or him, to sell one extra house, let's just say every other month, even if I'm not getting them a new client every single month, just one extra house every other month, the average increase to their business is like $6,000 a month. So if my fee is, let's say, $1,500, like they're coming out way ahead. Like it's actually really cheap what they're paying me relative to how much more money they're making. But that's not necessarily true if you apply it to other business models, like a local restaurant or a local coffee shop, or maybe a local dentist, or even a local CrossFit gym. There was a
Okay.
CrossFit gym that I helped add. I don't know. I helped them get like very nearly their first 100 members, honestly. Like they were brand new when they hired me. I'm not sure what the exact number was, but like we got them a ton of members. But their members are paying like $100 a month. And so if I do the marketing once that brings in a ton of members, they're bringing in $10,000 a month. Their costs are probably like $3,000 or $4,000 a month. These are all just ballpark guesstimates, but so they're making a comfortable living of whatever $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a month operating this CrossFit gym. Well, if I come along, I'm like, hey, to continue working with me, my fee is $1,500 a month. Again, that's like 20% ish of their entire take home pay. And they're thinking like, well, you already got us the members. Why do we have to keep paying you every month forever? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to look at the business model and make sure that like what you're charging and your
Mm-hmm.
business model is aligned with what's like realistic for businesses you're working with. So that was a really long-winded way of answering your question. Why did you work with realtors and what made that so successful? And I think it was just that my marketing strategies, I had to stumble upon the right industry to where the numbers made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it made sense for a realtor to hire me because of how much money they make if my marketing works.
So hypothetically, somebody's coming into this new, like if hypothetically, of course, you were going back, you're starting in this market right now, and in a moment I'll ask you a question about marketing in today's world, which is highly saturated. Um, but if you were going back and you recognized that you wanted a certain type of target customer, you're like, this is a type of target customer that I want because it fits my rate, it fits their kind of a business model, it just fits. How do you position yourself well so that you can do that? Because I guess for you it worked because you had that first realtor. You're like you could go to all the other realtors and say, "Hey, I did this for this person." Would you say find somebody smaller and then build their business and then use that as a case study, or like how would you go about it if you were going back?
Yeah, if I was going back, I would pretty much do exactly what I did. So again, like I need to give myself credit. I was much smarter at a younger age than maybe I thought I was. It's just that the reason I'm more financially successful now than I was when I was 20 or 21 is simply that I've had a chance to build more and add more clients, to that stack, right? Um, but I would do exactly what I did, which is like go your first client. Like it doesn't even matter if they pay you anything. My first clients, I was willing to do it for free because it's like I just need the case study. I just need a testimonial so that an actual business that might be willing to pay me that I can reference like, hey, look at this other business I worked with,
Mm-hmm.
results. I got them. And early on, the risk is actually more so on the business hiring you than on you because like they're taking a risk that if you really screw up their marketing, let's say, like that's a big risk to them.
Mm-hmm.
So it should almost be like you're willing to pay them just for the opportunity to do their marketing because they're kind of the one taking the risk, even if it's free.
How do you
Even if they're,
convince them?
I mean, I think it's on the strength of the ideas. Like you have to be confident when you're pitching them and they have to feel that you actually think it's going to work. But like in marketing, no one's going to hire you off of your charm. Like they want to see the actual ideas you're going to implement before they hire you, right? Like no one was like, wow, you seem smart, we'll hire you, I'm sure the ideas are good. Like no, they had to see the specific ideas I was going to be implementing. So you better have like a really well thought out substantive plan and then be confident that obviously that you can execute on it. But early on, it was like I would work for someone for free just for the case study so I could show that to the next client who might be willing to actually, pay me money. Like that first realtor I worked with was free. Like she didn't pay me anything. And my deal with her was like, if you do make money, you owe me a percentage of what you make in the future. But in the meantime, she didn't pay me anything because she literally had no money. So obviously I've been able to grow that into a business that charges a healthy monthly flat fee, where the client is willing to take the risk to obviously pay us up front because we have a track record that our marketing system works. So like they're not really taking a risk when I can say, hey, look at all these 180 clients we're already working with. And who knows, maybe in the future, if people are listening to this podcast episode, we'll have over 200 clients, right? Like it's not much of a risk if I can point to 200 other people that trusted us enough to work with us.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're getting started, you don't have that. So I
Mm-hmm.
would just go do work for free. And that's true whether it's like accounting. Maybe you want to start a local accounting firm. It doesn't have to be, marketing. Any type of service business you're doing, like even if it's not a service business. Like if I was opening a restaurant, and I had an ice cream parlor or a movie theater or something, like I would give away free tickets. I would give away free ice cream if it was an ice cream parlor, give away free food if it's a restaurant. in exchange for people leaving positive reviews, on social media, on Google, so that you build up like social proof, right?
Hmm.
Because assuming your product is good and that it actually works. So in a marketing context, assuming your marketing actually works, or if you own a restaurant, assuming your food is actually good, movie theater, assuming your movie theater's clean and a fun environment and the popcorn tastes good and blah 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 blah. Like you just need to get the word out. As long as people trust you, like they'll go and support your business. So like don't feel like you have to stand on integrity and be like, I'm always going to charge what I'm worth because I'm worth it. Like that sounds motivating, but it's really dumb advice if you're just getting started. Like you absolutely should go do work for free for people
Hmm.
just to get that social proof and just to get the case studies. Cause like it is way harder in a sales conversation to get someone to take a risk on something that's never been proven before than it is to be like, well, here's the last person I worked with and here's the results they got.
Hmm.
Yeah. And if
So
those are impressive, it's easy.
yeah, one interesting thing. So service-based businesses are harder, kind of, because it's tied to your time and it's tied to all of the people's time. Um, but in my opinion, service-based businesses are the best to start with. Like as a starting person, you don't really have much else other than yourself. So then building off of that, okay, well first I'm going to gain
Yep.
skills, tie my time to this, and then as you build out building products or whatever else. Would you ever go into any other type of business?
Yeah, I would. I mean, we're doing really, really well at platform right now. So it's not like I'm looking to, launch some new company
Mhm.
immediately. But like, yeah, I mean, I think if you're an entrepreneur, you always have that entrepreneurial itch you want to scratch. So yeah, I would, but I'm very partial to service
Why?
companies. It's just, I mean, I've thought about it a lot. I think it's just the way my brain is wired. Like I don't like thinking of low margin product based businesses where like you are winning your industry and beating the competition based on having a more optimized supply chain and getting a better deal with your raw materials or trying to eke out better efficient production schedules. And it's like, hey, if we can improve 1% here or half a percent there, if we can order in bulk and get 4% savings on that, like that that's just not the way my mind works. Like I'm not saying that those businesses are inferior in any way or that a service company is better. I'm just saying my brain specifically operates much better in a higher margin service business context where the marketing I
Mhm.
craft can like bring in clients that have a really high lifetime value and they refer people. That's just the way my brain works. I wouldn't be a very good marketer necessarily if it's like a product based business that requires mass volume of sales of widgets, or growing a company like that. Like they're both examples of entrepreneurship, right? But like running a service based business, whether it's a law firm, a CPA firm, a marketing agency,
Mhm.
obviously there's tons of examples of service based firms, but like it's very, very different than starting an industrial manufacturing company or building some sort of you know product.
Yeah. How does the marketing look different between the two?
Um, when you obviously have a product based business, whether it's like a physical product or let's say it's a SaaS company, like a software, as a product.
Mhm.
Even the phrase SaaS is kind of misleading, software as a service, because it's really like the product is software.
Mhm.
It should sell itself. So the real marketing and advertising that
Ah.
grows most product companies is like how good is the product itself. It's not that the companies who grow a software did better ad campaigns. Like the reason Facebook blew up or the reason that you know, uh, TikTok is becoming super popular in the last year, and Snapchat a couple years ago, and other SaaS programs. Whether it's you're talking Gmail or Dropbox or Netflix or all these various companies. The ones that succeed aren't the ones who have genius marketing campaigns or genius advertising campaigns. It's the ones where the product inherently is just superior because eventually that wins out, right? So the real marketing is designing a better product, right? I think the reason that I'm drawn to service-based companies is that is pure marketing because no one knows anything about your service company until they engage.
Mm.
or they talk to your past clients. And so like that's where marketing moves the needle the most, because like you could be the best lawyer in the world, even if let's stop talking about marketing agencies, right? Like let's say it's a law firm. You could be the best lawyer in the world. You went to Harvard Law and you clerked on the Supreme Court and you're just like the best lawyer ever. But if no one knows that, it doesn't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like your growth as a professional services firm is very much linked to your marketing messaging and your brand, and like what content are you putting out into the world that demonstrates your expertise and that demonstrates how good you are at what you do. Whereas a product, it's like you should spend like 99% of your time on product development and making sure you have product market fit where your
Mm.
customers actually want what you're selling. And then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, whatever, you sprinkle on some ad campaigns at the end, but like a good ad campaign is not going to save a shitty product. If you have software that no one likes or the interface is ugly, no one's going to use it just because you have killer TV ads or Facebook ads or Instagram posts with influencers, whatever, right? So I think that's why I'm drawn to service companies, but other people have much more like analytical, like granular, I think,
Mm-hmm.
processing in their brains, where they're really drawn to product businesses or manufacturing or software, where it's just more of a like quantitative approach to things. Like my family's big in the poultry industry. My grandpa started like a poultry processing company like 75 years ago. And a lot of the male cousins and uncles, whatever, in my family went to business school, got their MBA, and went to work for this poultry company. And like that just never even appealed to me, even remotely, of like monitoring what is this month's price on poults and what's the cost per bushel of corn and feed and what are our input costs on buying a propane to keep the barns warm in the winter, and what is the market price we're selling these poults for, or should we hedge those out into the future, or like making all these decisions where it's like this many pennies per poult or this many dollars per bushel of this feed. Like that's just not interesting to me. It's not the way
Mm-hmm.
my brain works. um but if they ever developed like a service company that sold some sort of premium service and I could market that, like that might be interesting. But I think you just need to be honest with yourself. What do you enjoy doing? Because if you don't actually enjoy what you're doing, you're never going to be able to ride out the times where things get challenging.
Love that. Love that so much. Okay, so one thought that I had that I'll bounce off of you. So you were talking about the fact that a product needs to sell itself. I think there are two different types of products. There's like the good products, like a chair company that I really like and I'll stay loyal to forever, versus, a drop shipped product. And that's a
Sure.
bad product in my opinion. Um, Good products have lifetime value, and that's why they need to be quality, because otherwise, like, you have one product sold and then it's done and nobody will buy from you again, and then your business is no more. And that's why drop shipping is like every month you start a new product company or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I never thought about the difference between service and product like that. I like that a lot, because then you're also marketing for longevity. It's like you build this relationship with your customer and your brand and your systems and all of these different things. So I like that a lot. Um, so my next question is about kind of how you think that marketing's changing because of everything being so saturated. Like everybody's coming out with a new ad platform. Ads are getting cheaper. You'll get onto a website and it's just like overloaded with so many ads, or even like on LinkedIn, I have so many people in my DMs just like trying to sell me on something. So how do you differentiate your products throughout all of this like excess?
Well, the first thing you have to remember is that like attention is the new currency. Like the one thing that most of us don't have is just like free time throughout the day and tons
Mm-hmm.
of attention. So that's even why we use the phrase pay attention, because right, like you're paying with your
Yeah.
attention. Like it's the one thing we don't like. A lot of people have money. What they don't have is attention.
Mm-hmm.
So your marketing needs to be so inherently interesting that people don't realize they're being advertised to. That's one thing I constantly preach to our team and anyone who hires us, is that I think the best ads don't look like ads, where it shouldn't just be a blatant advertisement for your product. It should, hook someone in and tell a story that's maybe like tangentially related to the product or service that you're selling, but it emotionally hooks someone in to where they just start to feel warm fuzzies about your brand, but it shouldn't feel like an ad. So there's really two ways of going about this. Like if you said the culture and just life is getting more saturated right now with ads, it's like, well, I guess we can increase our ad spend and saturate even harder and just, try to beat everyone in this arms race of who can run the most ads, right? Or you can do things differently. And one of my favorite expressions is different is better than better. Like often in marketing, people will buy something that's different rather than something that they're trying to convince is, or that the company is trying to convince them is better, right? So like if I'm on a sales call and I'm pitching platform, to some agent who's thinking about hiring platform marketing, I actually go out of my way to say, hey, I'm biased. I'm the founder CEO. So of course I think platform is better than all the other marketing programs available to you. But of course I'm going to say that, right? And this is what I'm telling them on the call. And so that usually gets a laugh, but it's like also true, right? Like, of course I'm going to tell you it's better. So instead of trying to convince you why platform is better, I'm actually just going to spend this call talking about the ways that we're different from other companies. And if that aligns with the way that you want to do marketing in your area, then maybe it makes sense to work together. But let's just talk about how we're different from other companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell the truth because there are things that we do that are very, very different from any other company that they'll talk to. And I think that kind of like using that language and that approach like is a shortcut because now people's guard is down. Now they're not like, oh crap, I'm just being sold and this guy's just trying to tell me how this thing's better than everything else. I'm actually telling you how it's different. And maybe you don't think that the way we're different is actually better. And then that's fine. You probably won't sign up. But to the type of person who aligns with the way that we do marketing, like being told how it's different from everything else, I think cuts through the clutter really, really well. So most companies need to figure out, again, whether you have a product or a service, how is what you're doing different than what the competition does? And if you can't think of how you're different, like that's a problem. You need to make yourself different, right? So until you don't start advertising and buying a bunch of marketing campaigns until you make sure that your product or your service is actually in some way meaningfully different. Because a lot of people think they have like an advertising or marketing problem when in reality, like you can write all the coolest ads in the world, but if your core product or service like isn't interesting and it's not actually differentiated from the competition at all that's going to happen when you advertise is like people will try your product and they realize that there's nothing special about it. And you're basically helping yourself go out of business faster because your advertising is just letting people know how undifferentiated you are, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But like marketing, an analogy I've used in a lot of my talks is like marketing is a fantastic fuel to a fire, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to blame yourself. Like if you're a business owner or entrepreneur, again, whether it's a product or a service, you have to do the hard work of rubbing sticks together or, bringing, matches or a lighter to the fire and putting, some tinder kindling in their newspaper and getting that first little 2-inch flame, right? You have to get the flame. Marketing can walk over and dump a can of gas on that fire and make it go boom, right? But if you walk over to a pile of logs and pour gasoline on it, nothing happens, right? You're just wasting gasoline. You have to have that small fire, which is that product market fit of like, oh, we actually have something that people want. Like people are willing to pay money and they're telling their friends already. Like we are getting a positive referral rate, like more people are referring us than people are quitting. So every month we're already growing even without paid marketing, right? If you add paid marketing to that equation, that's when really, really cool things happen. But unless your product is different in some meaningful way, spending a bunch of money on marketing doesn't really change that fact. It just makes your life more stressful.
I can understand that. It was a big realization for me whenever I came to understand that marketing wasn't about selling people on a product. It was about finding the right people to communicate value to. And that's it. It's just like communicating.
Yeah. Yep. Like if you are clear on what your company stands for or what, again, how your product or your service is different, marketing is actually really, really easy. It's just that most people aren't clear on that. And so they think, oh, I've got to learn whatever, Instagram ads or Facebook ads, or I need to, how can we write a killer TV ad, or whether it's direct mail or billboards or
Mm-hmm.
radio ads, whatever they're, thinking of doing. If you're not clear on how is your product or service actually better or different, paid ads don't solve the problem because you're just the guy walking over to a campfire pouring gasoline on a bunch of logs when there's no flame that's actually going to ignite.
Mm-hmm. The other part is also that I see so many people get wrong is trying to make everybody their target customer. Like trying to make every single person fit into this, you're my target and you, and then that doesn't allow them to get specific enough with their communication.
Yeah, and knowing who your customer is also makes writing the ads better. So
Mhm.
it like having clarity on that early in the process makes all the difference. And like I've had several people that wanted to hire me as a marketing consultant, and I just spent whatever 5-10 minutes on the phone with them figuring out, okay, who is your target market, or who do we want to target with this. And within 5 minutes I can tell, like, they don't need to hire me as a marketing consultant. They would just be wasting their money because like they're not even sure who their target market is, and I'm not
Mhm.
comfortable taking their money to start building out marketing campaigns unless they know that. And so I probably saved them a lot of money by
Mhm.
turning them down and saying, hey, no, you need to get clear on that before you would work with someone like me to build out those campaigns. Because if you know who your target customer is, it makes
Mhm.
every marketing decision and business decision easier after that. So let's pick a totally different type of business that like we haven't talked about yet. Like let's say that you're a local massage therapist. Technically it's like a service-based business, I guess, right?
Mhm.
Like you might think, oh, anyone willing to pay me money for massage is my target customer. But that's really hard to do marketing, because if you're like, oh, I'll take anyone who wants a massage, it's like, well, I don't know. You can run billboards in your area or send out direct mail or run just generic Facebook ads. But if you don't really know who specifically this is for, you're going to have to spend a lot of money because you're doing very broad, just generic targeting, right?
Mhm.
Says, I'm not saying this is what you should do if you're a massage therapist, but just think about this as an example. Is like, what if you crafted a brand that was like, we're a massage therapy specifically for entrepreneurs? Because we know that small business owners or entrepreneurs are very stressed, and often they're caring about like everyone in their organization. They're caring about their company above their own well-being.
Mhm.
So we think it's really important that specifically, entrepreneurs and small business owners regularly get massages just to have an hour to, you know, decompress and relax and kind of get some quiet time where they're just relaxing and thinking versus constantly being available and working so hard. So we're specifically a massage therapy for entrepreneurs. The whole purpose of this is stress relief, right? Like we're not doing deep tissue massage where it's like sports recovery massage. Like we are specifically just to help entrepreneurs
Mhm.
decompress. Like getting clear on that, just as an example, would change everything you do as that business, because now I know who I'm going to market to. It's small business owners. I'm going to rent mailing lists and stuff from the local chambers of commerce. I'm going to advertise in the business section of the newspaper. I'm going to run Facebook ads, for example, targeting local small business owners. I might put like framed inspirational quotes about business in the lobby when people walk in. So it's clear that when you come in, this isn't like a traditional Thai or Asian massage place with bamboo everywhere and that soothing harp music. Like this is like specifically for entrepreneurs, right? I would attend local, like I said, local chamber meetings, BNI. I would get involved in my community so that all the small business owners know who I am, and maybe give away free massages to stressed out small business owners as like a free way to generate publicity. Because you could probably get a newspaper article written about you by doing that, right? Like, and I would target other businesses who their clients are local small business owners because they share my same customer, but they're not competition. So like think about a local accounting CPA firm. Their ideal customer is a local small business. So I could maybe do a joint partnership with them where I say something like, hey, any client you get, I will give them a free massage. You don't owe me anything. There's no strings attached. It's just that hopefully some of the people who come in to redeem their free massage hopefully become a repeat customer and a lifetime client. So go to the local CPA firm and give them a bunch of, gift card vouchers that they can give to their clients saying, hey, go here and get a free massage. If you can prove that you're a small business owner, your first 60-minute massage is free, right? And then target any type of business that shares that same customer avatar of, local small
Mhm.
business. It wouldn't be long before you probably have a regular clientele who's coming back to you every, week or every month and getting a massage.
Mhm.
It's because you got clear on who specifically this is for. So like, I don't know, like what, 10% of the population is an entrepreneur? I'm just totally guessing. I have no idea what the actual percentage is, but let's say it's 10%. that means like you've eliminated 90% of people from the way that you're going to do the targeting. But I bet you would make way more money doing that than just in a generic sense. Oh, we're open to the public, anyone who wants to hire us,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes
Mm-hmm.
it really difficult to craft marketing campaigns if you're kind of just something for everyone.
Agree. It's like 80% of 100 people versus 5% of 1,000. Okay, so I had a question on finding and really getting into the head of your target market, because that's kind of an interesting concept. It's just, and sometimes I'm good at it whenever I get really into it, but how do you create like this atmosphere for yourself where you are dialed into who this target customer is? You can understand what they want, understand how to talk to them, understand even like what kind of pictures to use or what kind of links to put on or what kind of freebies to give, etc. How do you get into the space where you really, really understand your target customer?
Well, this might sound like a cop out, but it helps if you are that target customer, like you've experienced their pain. Like, I mean, there's obviously plenty of examples of great marketers who have done research and figured out using, data, like who the target customer is. But like the best, most inspired campaigns often is because the person crafting the campaign is the target customer and they know exactly what it's like to be that
Mm,
customer. So, for example, I could write killer ad copy and like brilliant marketing campaigns if I was running or doing marketing for a local massage place and we were targeting entrepreneurs, because I know exactly what to write to appeal to an entrepreneur because I am one. Right? Like I
mm-hmm.
know what would appeal to me, so that's very easy to write. I don't necessarily have to do a bunch of research to figure out what are the pain points and what are the psychological triggers that keep that person up at night. Like what are they really worried about in life that we can be the solution for? I don't have to do research on that because I know it's me, right? So you have to like join social groups, clubs, organizations, or Reddit, or read forums online of like what are those like what are those people talking about? What are their pain points? How do they talk about it? So you want to make sure you're using the right wording
Mm.
that they use, so you're not just getting the concept right, but use the specific words that they use so that they know that you're one of them, right? There's like really no shortcut. You just have to really know your audience. Like if I'm just trying to think of a totally random example. If I was hired by, I don't know, trying to an association trying to recruit car dealerships. I don't know, like let's say it's like a CRM software for car dealerships, and they're trying to get car dealerships to sign up for their CRM. Like, well, I need to really immerse myself in the world of car dealerships, and I need to be attending car dealership conferences, reading books written for owners of car dealerships, find like the you know Reddit conversations going on online about car dealerships, asking questions and what are the terms they use, what is the jargon they use, what are the common things that go wrong, that like what is it like to be a manager at a car dealership, right? Because if you can insert and you can sprinkle a couple references into your ad copy and into your headlines and into your marketing strategy that proves that you understand that you're like one of them, like that's the difference between an ad working and not working, because they feel like, oh wow, like this company actually understands what it's
Ah,
like leadership.
okay, because it also builds a level of trust. It's like, okay, and then it's just like a
Yeah, I mean, like a good ad campaign, whether you're selling, like I said, a car dealership CRM software, or you're selling a product, or you're selling a professional service, like a good ad campaign is 90% building an emotional connection with the potential purchaser so that they feel like you understand your problems, and at some sort of gut instinctual emotional level that they feel like you get them. And then it's
mm-hmm.
10% you kind of hint and you tease at what the specific things are that your product or service does, but it's 90% just establishing that primal level of connection, which is why like the worst ads are the ones where all they talk about is features and benefits and here's what our product does, because they're not actually building any sort of emotional connection between you and the person who's going to be buying it, right? So that's the mark of like someone who doesn't know what they're doing with advertising and marketing, is they're just talking about the features of the product and the bullet points of what makes it good.
Mm-hmm.
Great ads get at this primal connection that I think all of us have, where we want to feel understood. We want to feel that whatever problems we're dealing with, that something out there can solve those. And then if you make that connection, um, you are basically like, a good ad lays out the dots for someone to see so that they can connect them and feel like they connected the dots, but you didn't tell them what to buy. But the ad made it very clear, here's the dots, so they feel like they're coming to the conclusion themselves.
That's awesome. Okay, so I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that great companies to market for, great people to market for, have their brand identity solid. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, again, marketing can't solve a crappy product. You'll just, if
Mm-hmm.
you apply great marketing to a crappy product, you're just going to help it go out of business faster because you're spreading the word of how terrible it is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Okay, so in all of your experiences, what makes a good brand? Like, what do they do right? What do they do wrong? How do they stay consistent?
That's a really tough question to to answer, of what makes a tough brand, because very quickly you get into like a tautology of like circular reasoning of you're describing what it means to be successful, right? So
Mm.
maybe a different way I would go at answering, I think, like the question behind the question you're asking is, what are some litmus tests to know that you've achieved a good brand, that are maybe slightly less obvious or a little bit more counterintuitive than just saying, oh, you're making a lot of money, right? Is, you've achieved a strong brand positioning when potential customers in your market will actually inconvenience themselves and go out of their way to purchase your product or service, even if something else is technically a better deal or it's more convenient for them. Like, that's how badly they want to buy your specific thing, right? So for years, like Harley Davidson, no one would be caught dead driving a Honda or some other off-brand, road bike. Like, if you wanted a Harley, and it didn't matter if the nearest Harley dealership was 100 miles away or 200 miles away, you would inconvenience yourself to go buy specifically a Harley Davidson, right? Same thing with Apple. Like, even if you lived in a small town for the last 10 years, and it's like, let's say that no one in your town sold Apple products, you didn't have an Apple store or whatever, like, you would still buy an Apple product, even if it meant you had to drive to a mall that was 50 miles away or 100 miles away, or maybe you had to order it online. It took a while to arrive, because it's like, well, I don't want to go buy some crappy off-brand computer that's not a MacBook Pro, right? People will inconvenience themselves to buy Apple products because the brand power is so powerful, right? And so with a service company, it's the same thing. Like, are customers willing to pay you more, or like pay a premium compared to what other companies are charging, because they specifically want to work with you? That to me is the power of a brand. Like, a brand is not a logo. A brand is not having a cool color scheme or a fancy looking website or even clever or compelling, creative ads. A brand is when people will go out of their way, inconvenience themselves to work with you because they want to specifically work with you, right? And so, like, um, if you look at airlines, right, there's not really any airline that has a compelling brand, judged by that litmus test, because most people just pick, when they're flying somewhere, it's like, what's the cheapest fare? Like, they don't really give a shit whether it's Spirit or Delta or American Airlines or United. Like, really, none of these airlines can actually say, oh, we have lifers that they'll only fly American or they'll only fly United. Like, most people, they might say, oh, I prefer Delta, for example. But if they find a flight going to the same place that, let's say, is on American Airlines, it's $100 cheaper, they're going to go with American Airlines every time if it saves them $100, right? They don't actually have brand loyalty to where they'd be willing to go to a certain airline, if it's actually more expensive or somehow, less convenient, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with food or clothes or cars, people are totally different. Like, people will inconvenience themselves for certain brands because they want that brand and they don't view others as a substitute.
That's awesome. If you've created this brand like those airlines, and you've gotten yourself to this place where, I mean, you have a brand, like you have a logo, you have a name, but you don't have the reputation that makes people say, I'm only going to do this. How do you begin to get yourself there? How do you course correct, I guess?
Yeah. So, I mean, if there's nothing interesting about your company or how it does business, I mean, this all goes back to like different is better than better. So you don't have to be better than the competition. You just have to be meaningfully different somehow,
Mm.
right? Like Chick-fil-A has an incredible brand. This is actually a great example of what I'm talking about. People will wait in line at a Chick-fil-A drive-through for 15 minutes or 20 minutes because they specifically want Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is categorized as fast food. Most Chick-fil-A restaurants, I think, do about 4 times the sales as a normal fast food location does. And yet it's different. Like you could say it's better, I guess, but like that's totally subjective. Like it's better than McDonald's or it's better than Burger King or it's better than Wendy's or Taco Bell or something. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, I guess, but like also not really because that's purely subjective, right? Uh Saying something tastes better is subjective, right? But it's different. Like Chick-fil-A sells chicken. They don't sell hamburgers and beef, beef products. It's chicken. So like it's very different. And the branding is very different than a Burger King or McDonald's or Wendy's or the traditional fast food, right? So people, because they're loyal to that, they'll inconvenience themselves. They'll go out of their way. Like if you're on a road trip, let's say you just really have a hankering for a Chick-fil-A deluxe sandwich and a peach milkshake in the summer, right? Like if you're on a road trip and you see that you're driving through a town that doesn't have a Chick-fil-A and it's like 6:30 and you're starving and you haven't eaten, dinner yet, you're like, oh, well, we're going to keep driving until we find a town that on one of those roadside signs says there's a Chick-fil-A here, right? Where if you're not brand loyal, you're not going to do that. You'll just be like, well, the first, sign we see of a town that has an exit that has any fast food, that's where we're stopping, right? And so you have to do that soul searching of be like, how or in what ways is our company, is our product, is our service willing to be different? How are we going to be different than the competition? Because you're not always going to be better on everything. Other companies might do things better than you do, right? Like as an example, even with platform, we don't offer website design. So as part of our marketing package, we don't include IDX websites, which is what most realtors have, where it allows you to search for listings online on their website. Because it's always been my opinion that like it does not matter how cool you think your website is, people are still going to look on Zillow or Realtor.com.
Yeah.
You could run all the ads in the world. Let's say I'm a realtor and it's like, go to my website, Tim Chermak Realtor, and you can look for homes here. It's like, they're not going to do that. I could spend $50,000 having the coolest website in the world, but they're still going to go to Zillow, right? Because people use Zillow to search for homes. It's just what they do. And so we don't offer websites as part of platform because that's one of my core beliefs that like they wouldn't use them anyways. So why would I offer you a website, which would mean I would have to increase the price of our platform service because now I would have to pay for a team of programmers, developers to build and maintain these websites if I know it's not actually going to matter, right? So one way that we're different than almost every other marketing company in the industry is like we're just deciding not to play that game entirely. We're just not even offering a website as part of our marketing package. We run ads for you and we build out your social media ads and we edit all your videos and we give you the scripts for the videos and we build the landing pages and follow-up sequences and all that, but we don't do what almost every other company in our industry does, which is build a website. And so I say that in the sales call with the realtor and they're like, oh, wow, yeah, that actually makes perfect sense why you wouldn't do that. It's like, it's very kind of like no duh to me, but when I tell it to them, they're like, oh yeah, I never thought about that before. And then they start realizing like, oh wow, this company has actually thought about why they're being different. And so you can tell when I'm explaining this that kind of the wheels and the gears are turning in their head and they're realizing like, oh wow, this company does sound different than all the other companies. I'm not necessarily saying it's better, but they can draw that conclusion themselves. I'm laying out the dots. Again, they can connect the dots. So it feels like they're reaching the conclusion independently without me telling them what to think.
No, I think that's actually fantastic. That goes back to one of your initial points of just because everybody's always done it a certain way does not mean you have to. And I think the fact that y'all don't offer a website is it kind of shows that you know the target market even better because it's like, no, I mean, I even think about myself. No, I'm not going to go to a website that's going to have contact information, the same thing that's on Zillow.
Yeah, right. One of my favorite sales and marketing books, I forget the author, but it's called The Challenger Sale. And they did a long-term study that was kind of the basis of this book, The Challenger Sale. And what the results of that study, you know, and what became the thesis of the book is that I think it was like whatever they in this huge study they identified 5 or 6 types of like sales personality types. So it's almost like um, all these types can be successful in a sales job. What they found was like of the most successful people, like 90% of them were one of the 6 types, and that was what they called the challenger sales personality. And that's you will be most successful at sales. Like the top salespeople in the world are willing, like they're so confident in what they're selling and in their ability to diagnose problems that they are willing to actually challenge a client's beliefs on a sales call or in a sales meeting and like argue with them to prove a different perspective. Because what that does is it actually disarms the other person, realizing like, oh, you're actually not just trying to sell me a product. You actually believe this so much so that you're willing to argue with me. Because like old school sales advice is like, always say things that keep the prospect happy and liking you, but that just feels like you're having your ass kissed, right? If someone is actually willing to challenge you and tell you that you're wrong and here's how you actually should do it, that requires a certain degree of like confidence. And that's actually very attractive in a sales conversation. If you know that the person challenging you is challenging you maybe because they know more than you, right? And so you're kind of like, oh, okay, well, this person clearly has done some thinking on this. I can trust that they must have reasons for believing what they believe, but they're not just going and saying, oh, our product is better than everything else, or our service is better than everything else because of these features, whatever. They're actually actively challenging you on maybe some premises you have that for whatever reason, you know, aren't true. So it's basically the opposite of ass kissing, which is what the stereotypical sales strategy has been over the years of just make the person like you, you know.
Hmm.
That really doesn't work in the real world of like complex sales.
Completely.
It was one of those reading experiences where I just kind of got lucky reading the books. I realized like, oh, I didn't have to read this book to know that. That always just came naturally to me. It was like
That's
intuitive.
awesome.
It was intuitive that if I want to be effective at sales, I need to challenge people on what they might think is, you know, wrong. Um,
Hmm.
or what I should say, I know that they believe something wrong, but they think that they want this. And I'm actually convincing them, no, what you actually need is this, because like they end up respecting you more because you actually challenge them. And then like ironically, they they trust you more because they know that if you do agree with them on something, you're actually being authentic.
I like that. Okay, so I have one last question before I get to the rapid fire questions. Um, so I don't know if you have any background with this, but you brought up the Chick-fil-A example, and I would be absolutely fascinated if you had any thoughts on like a case study kind of a thing. Like why is Chick-fil-A successful? Is it the service? Is it the quality? Is it the fact that they have marketed the fact that it's quality? Is it um, the chicken versus the beef? Like, what different aspects have they put together to actually make Chick-fil-A Chick-fil-A?
So there's a couple reasons here, and obviously this is all my opinions. I haven't like personally done a deep dive on studying Chick-fil-A, but I know their average location is like I think it's 4 times as profitable as an average fast food
Mm-hmm.
location, like sales volume they're doing. I would say in my life experience that their food is higher quality and it's more expensive. So it's not as if they're just serving higher quality food and selling it at the same price, you know, because obviously you wouldn't make any money doing that, because if you have to
Mm-hmm.
pay for higher quality food, you know, you're not going to have any margin left over. So I think they realized like, well, if McDonald's sells one of their, you know, burgers or whatever for let's say $2 and ours costs 4, yes, ours is way more expensive. It's actually double the price. But if it's that much better, you know, going and getting a Chick-fil-A deluxe sandwich versus just getting a McDonald's cheeseburger for $2 or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Most people, that $2, like it's such an insignificant amount of money that if I'm going out for lunch or I'm on the road and I'm need to do a drive-through because I'm on a road trip or something, like I'm willing to spend that extra $2. Technically, it's actually 100% more expensive, right? We're going from 2 to 4, but it's like it's only $2. So even though as a percentage, it's like, oh wow, what a huge difference. Really not that big of a deal. And so I think they probably learned early on that like, yes, we are objectively more expensive, but we're going to trust that people will want it so much more that it actually won't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think they pay I can't verify this because I've never worked for a Chick-fil-A, but I think I remember reading they do pay their employees more than a typical fast food place does. So they're
Hmm.
basically drawing on a talent pool of more just friendly looking, courteous, professional people. Again, I'm pulling these numbers out of nowhere, so please don't quote me on this, but let's just say that Chick-fil-A pays their employees $18 an hour and other fast food places are paying, I don't know, $14 an hour, right? Well, the type of person you would get for $18 an hour is radically different than the type of person you would get for $14 an hour. Because if everyone then goes and interviews for the $18 an hour job, you have a limited number of those jobs. You're going to take only the best people because you know that you're paying more than the competition pays. You can afford to be very, very choosy with who you hire, right?
Hmm.
That contributes to the customer experience as well. Because I think anyone who's ever gone to a Chick-fil-A can kind of attest that like the quality of the people they have working for them is just a different level of employee than you typically see at like a McDonald's or a Wendy's late at night or something like that, you know. But Chick-fil-A looks like they have just a bunch of young kids or young adults that are like, this is a job while they also go to college and they're going to be a teacher or something, or they're going to, you know, do whatever. And they're just not looking like losers and they care about their job and they're happy to be there, or at least they're really good at faking it, right? Because they smile and they say, you know, thank you. And what's the expression they always say at Chick-fil-A? Um,
My pleasure.
my pleasure. Yeah, there you go. Right. Like, again, either they're genuinely happy or they're really good at faking it. Right.
Hmm.
And so you don't get that from a strategic level. If Chick-fil-A can create that experience by paying just a little bit more in the, you know, hourly wage and in having a little bit higher quality or like thicker cuts of chicken fillets, you know, so the food just feels like it subjectively tastes better. And that means they can charge way more and have higher margins. They're going to kick the butt
Yeah.
of every other company because McDonald's is stuck thinking that all people care about is low cost.
Well, okay, and I was reading something, and McDonald's isn't in the business of food; they're in the business of real estate. So
Right.
then it's just like
Yep.
their focus is different. Do you think that Chick-fil-A is kind of they're kind of doing what Whole Foods is? It's like a luxury marketing kind of a thing,
Yeah, I mean, because it is objectively more expensive, right?
and then you have the experience, and then you have all of these different types of luxury feeling kind of
It,
things.
I mean, they've almost created their own category. Because I think a lot of people, and maybe they're fooling themselves, but a lot of people, if you go to the drive-through, you go pick up Chick-fil-A, you don't feel like you just went out for fast food. It feels like it's like a slightly higher category, but like let's
Hmm.
be honest, it is fast food,
It
right?
is, yeah.
It's like chicken sandwiches and milkshakes and fries and
Drive-throughs.
yeah, right. Like it's fast food, but Chick-fil-A has done such a good job cultivating this brand that people convince themselves, oh, it's not fast food. It's not the same as McDonald's or, you know, Wendy's or Burger King or whatever. And even McDonald's, like back in the day, they were not what they are today. Like McDonald's, when they got started back in the era of like, you know, Ray Kroc in the 50s and 60s, was more similar to what we would consider like In and Out or Five Guys to be today, where they had a very pared down menu and they did a couple things really, really well. And they took advantage of the cost efficiencies of that. You know, now McDonald's has a huge menu with all sorts of different things. I think the quality is down a lot. And because of their model, they have to pay, you know, just rock bottom wages to make that work. And so I would not want to be a franchisee owning McDonald's stores today. Like I don't see
Yeah.
that model being successful in the future. Even if it was the last 50 years, I don't see that being being the model of the future. Even with the, you know, the real estate strategy notwithstanding, all of that's true, but the real estate isn't worth anything if the business you have on it isn't making money. You know, and McDonald's is actually losing stores now, where they're closing more often than they're opening new ones. And so, yeah, I think that whole landscape is changing because you've also got companies like in the fast casual space, like Panera, Chipotle, obviously, that are proving that, hey, you know, even for like $10, which is not a lot of money, like you can get a way better tasting meal than you could by spending, let's say, $5 or $6 on a fast food value meal. And again, it is objectively more expensive. So they're kind of like borrowing this concept from Chick-fil-A. Like we're not pretending that we're the same price if you get a burrito at Chipotle, right? It is objectively more expensive than McDonald's, but like it's still fits in the same mental category of like, well, whatever, I'm going out to eat. It's $5, $10. That's like the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The point
It
is you're
is.
not going to a sit down restaurant. You're not spending $30 or $50 or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so most people, it's like, well, if I can spend $10 and get a bowl or get a burrito at Chipotle with like high quality food that's like fresh, versus getting like a greasy burger and fries from McDonald's for $5, like, of course I'm going to go to Chipotle, right? And ironically, McDonald's was actually one of the earliest investors that pumped a ton of capital to help Chipotle grow. But yeah, I mean, it all goes back to the product, I guess, is like if the product is better, you don't need fancy marketing. Like it's not about, incredibly, creative advertising campaigns or TV ads or, billboards, or it's not marketing that grew these businesses necessarily. It's like, is the product better? And if it is, or it's different in some way, like meaningfully different, that's marketing.
I like that focus so much more. Just instead of focusing on design, instead of focusing on complexity, instead of focusing on all of these outward things, like intrinsically, how can you differentiate yourself? How do you, in your value prop, say, okay, I'm different because XYZ, this is what I can offer that nobody else can? I think that's really great.
Yeah, different is better than better.
I love that. I'm going to start using that. Okay, now I have some rapid fire questions. So just say the first instinct, okay? Okay. Number one, what do you value in life?
Happiness.
And what is that?
To me, happiness is waking up every day, getting to do what I want to do and not being forced to do anything that I don't want to do, and being able to be spontaneous. So if I feel like taking a trip out to Colorado and skiing for the weekend, I just go do it. I don't have to ask anyone permission. I have enough money in my bank account to book the flights, book the hotels, buy the lift tickets, go snowboarding for a weekend. If I want to go on a cruise for a week, I can go do it. I don't need to ask permission from anyone. I have enough money in my bank account to go book a cruise, right? If I want to take a week off of work, I don't need to ask permission from anyone. I'll just tell my team I'm not working this week. I'm going to focus on reading and going on long walks and going to the beach, and I'll do that, right? Like, happiness is getting to do what I want to do when I want to do it and not having to ask permission from people.
So it's like freedom.
Yeah, I think like practical freedom and happiness are very much linked. Like, I could be making 10 times as much money as I'm making right now, but if I had to work for someone in a typical job where it's like, hey, you get 2 weeks or 3 weeks of vacation a year, and you have to show up to an office from 9 to 5 every day, like, I would be miserable even if I was making millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. Like, I would be miserable doing that. So I think happiness has just as much to do with your time freedom and sense of autonomy as it does sometimes with how much money you're making.
I love that a lot. Okay, number two, what is a good life?
I mean, my answer is probably really similar to happiness, which is the good life is waking up every day, getting to do what you want to do on your own terms, and knowing that the future is always going to be brighter than the past. Like, having that innate sense of optimism that's based on reality, not just based on wishful thinking. So being able to look, let's say, 5 years out in the future and know that I'm probably going to have more money, be making more money, and can afford to buy cooler things or experiences than I can right now. That's a really good life, right? People who are trapped in a dead end job, or they can't honestly look a year out or 2 years out and actually think my life is going to be better. That sucks, right? Like, that would be a cause to become depressed. So I think the good life is being able to be optimistic based on reality, which is based on the decisions you're making in your life that create that reality, right? And then a huge part of it too is like having friends and family that you enjoy being with. You could have all the money in the world and all the autonomy, freedom in the world, but if you don't have great relationships with friends and family that you get to hang out with, like, it's all for naught. So that to me is really important. Like, I have really great relationships with my family and my friends, and I prioritize how I spend my money so I get to hang out with them as much as possible and create experiences. So certainly in those two answers of the good life and happiness, having close relationships with friends and family that you get to regularly see, I think is a hugely underrated part of that formula.
And the last question, if you could leave one piece of advice for people below you, generations below you, the world, what would it be?
Focus on happiness, not net worth. I think if you do that and you pursue what makes you come alive and you pursue what makes you happy, the money part of that equation often works out, like in your career. But if you chase money, or if you chase like surface level of success in a way that doesn't actually make you happy, like if I had gone into investment banking and finance like I originally planned I was going to, I would have made a lot of money, but I wouldn't have been happy. And that's kind of an empty victory, because who cares if you have a lot of money if you're doing something that you hate? And so if you focus on things that make you come alive, even if they're challenging, even if they're difficult at times, right? That creates long-term happiness, and often the money and the success will follow. But don't mistake your net worth for happiness, or vice versa, because often life decisions that will make you happier don't optimize your net worth. So just as an example, like a couple years ago, I wanted to buy a new vehicle, and I knew our business was doing well. I didn't literally have the cash in the bank to pay cash for a new vehicle. And everyone's like, oh, Dave Ramsey, you never have debt on anything. I had no problem getting $1,000 a month car payment. So I bought like a car that had $1,000 a month payment. It was like, this is the car I want. I drive a lot. I want to have the experience of driving a new car. I know I can afford it because our business is doing well and I can afford the monthly payment. But because of just the temporary time that we were in with the business, I didn't have enough money to like write a check for that car. I had no problem financing it. Now, I am fully aware that every logical, rational argument would tell you you are an absolute fucking moron for financing a car with $1,000 payment, because they'd be like, well, if you put that money into long term, it would turn into 2 or 3 times that much when you're ready to retire. It's like, cool, I don't care. I'd rather have a new car now than a couple $100,000 when I'm 60. Or people who talk about like, if you don't drink that daily glass of wine, or you don't go to Starbucks and get a mocha or a latte every day, like you could have $1 million in retirement. It's like, I'd rather have the mocha now. Thanks. Like, I'm fully aware that there's trade-offs, but at the end of the day, life is not about accumulating money. It's about being happy. So make whatever decisions you have to make to set yourself up for obviously having a firm financial foundation to where you can enjoy life, because you don't want to be broke. That's no fun either. But once you hit that minimum level of like you're doing reasonably responsible things with your finances, make sure that you don't confuse happiness with net worth, because it's kind of pointless to retire with multi-millions of dollars if you never got to enjoy your life in the meantime.
Yep. What's the purpose of life? To live. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I have deeply enjoyed this conversation. It was actually everything that I have been really thinking about. I love marketing. I like the idea of scaling businesses. Love all of that. So this is amazing. Thank you.
I hope that you found this episode enriching. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you would like to write a rating or a review, that would be fantastic. You can also follow me at Podcast. I'm looking forward to our next episode. Cheers.